Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I'm just gonna wait because this interview was supposed to be in an hour. All right, welcome everybody. We were scheduled for in an hour, but something's been happening with the time zones and call this global awakening or whatever you want. But we are gonna jump live in right about 2 minutes. I'm just waiting for Blue to send me an invite and I will let everybody know. Thank you for joining us, and I'm really sorry about the time change. Something happened with the time zones. Oh, hello there.
Hi, beautiful human.
Welcome, welcome, Blue Cosmic Eagle. We have a time thing happening, but I'm so glad we found alignment to show up.
Oh, well, I
And
mean, still a good amount of people showing up on the call, so
oh,
it seems to be the perfect time.
welcome, welcome, Blue. And first things first, what do I call you? Blue Cosmic Eagle, Charlotte, Awesome
Blue.
Human?
Blue works perfectly fine.
Amazing. Welcome, Blue, and it's an honor to have you here with us today. This is my first live interview. I always thought I will be the one being interviewed, but actually I decided this is a really great opportunity to connect with people who I really look up to and feel resonance with and feel inspired by. And I've been following your channel for a while now and your podcast. And even sometimes you'll be reading the book at the exact same time I'll be reading that book. So there was so much over the past year or two. Oh yeah, boom. And I was really excited to bring you to the audience here in the Arab world because I feel part of what you're living, Miss Blue Cosmic Eagle, is such a beautiful and kind of like, it's not even authentic. It's beyond that. Your name, the way you look, the way you live, living in community, like all these aspects of being in a reality that you've cultivated from so deep within, because obviously the world we live in did not tell you to be Blue Cosmic Eagle, right? You found the things that meant something real for you, and you went on to pave a path and a life that really resonates with your deepest and most eccentric truth in that way. So I thought today would be a great opportunity to introduce this possibility of such a being as Blue Cosmic Eagle living in and of course, we're going to talk, but it's also a frequency, bringing in, calling in your frequency, your energy, your worldview, just what's happening inside you and what's happened over the past years that's allowed you to step into this power and step into this truth and beauty and really live a life that's authentic for you. So I'm so honored to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I can see that there's lots of comments popping up like, please speak Arabic. And as much as I think that would be absolutely magical, I can't speak Arabic, and
Go
it's
for
quite
it.
a challenging conversation if you're asking me questions in Arabic. I'm like,
You can try it. You can try it for a few minutes. The good news is I am translating the interview and it will be translated in Arabic for my YouTube channel by next week. So if you do not speak English, guys, it's fine. Just check into YouTube next week and you'll find the interview with translation. But for now, we're going to flow with a global language, which I dearly love and has also helped me, find my own expression. And so it's cool that we get to connect globally through this language that we call English. So Blue, tell me about you. Tell me how it all started for you. I'd love to hear like how this whole journey of awakening and becoming Blue Cosmic Eagle, just maybe the catalyst, the early days, what happened from being right, you were working in corporate LA or something, and then going, bam, no, that's not for me. Tell me about it.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say and place it into the space. Thank you so much for your ability to pivot very quickly last minute. We had a daylight saving shift, and so we were both on two different times, and you just went, okay, let's do it now. And
Let's
just
do it.
want to acknowledge and speak into that. Thank you for your quick last minute shift in this, and we've still got lots of beautiful people here, so it's all perfect. And okay, wow. I mean, how does someone sum up 30 years in like in an answer? However, I'll give you a little bit of context of sort of like where I grew up. I'm from the UK, born and raised in Manchester, just outside of Manchester, and I was born into a very beautiful family, and also very strict, and like a very strict English boarding school. And I was also raised in the military, so it was a very like, this is your name. I was even referred to by my first name. It was Britain, stand up, like at the end of the night, you know, and everything was very militant. And it was, you know, going through schooling, so, education system, and it was very much encouraged to fit into the status quo, fit into the ice cube tray of the sameness is encouraged, and we're all ranked off of the same grading scale. And it, you know, we're referred to by our last names. It was like very sort of that militant upbringing. And so I kind of just did what I needed to do to get by, and I lived into a reality that I thought would be accepted by the external. And I thought that, okay, well, this is what success would be, so I'm going to do this path, and constantly looking outside of myself as a reference point of what it means to be human, and utilizing the societal expectations of me to learn what it means to be successful in this life. And so eventually, long story short, I ended up in an office job working, and I ended up moving out to LA and working in an office 9 to 5. And I was like numb on the inside. Numb. I'm like, there's got to be more to this. Like on paper, I'm a successful human, but like on the inside of the core of my being, all of those things that I did when I was a kid before I was told who I was supposed to be, that those just sort of died inside of me, or kind of was withering away. The creativity, the music, the art, the dancing, the celebration, the putting on plays and dressing up in funny outfits. Like, what happened to her? Like, it took like, you know, a 20-year arch around who I was born in this life to be, and then who I became because I thought I was supposed to be. And then actually now, as much as I am learning on the quote unquote spiritual path, which is really just coming home into ourselves, this is actually realizing that as much as I am learning, I'm unlearning so much. I'm unlearning all of the projections of the shoulds. You should be this. This is what it means to be successful. You should marry this kind of guy. This is all of these different things that were like, and over time they become very claustrophobic. And it's like, what is my truest pulse? And so realizing actually that our uniqueness is our power. That thing that we can do that no one else can do, that's where the secret sauce is.
Like your signature frequency. And really taking that on so many levels, right, Blue? Like it starts with one decision. Okay, I want to make something, create stuff that's more aligned with my soul. And then it starts to like ripple out the way you look, the name you take, the community you live with. So I'm really interested what was the catalyst? Like, what was the first decision that you had to make or kind of break free from that shoulds, you know, like from the CV and the job and the corporate and the safety to really honoring your truth? What was one decision or one catalyst or one person, one human that really invited you? And I feel life is a series of invitations, right? Especially if you're a projector. I am a hardcore projector. It's all about the invitations. And so sometimes in life, this invitation comes sometimes in the form of someone telling you, hey, want this new job? Or someone going like, hey, Blue, would you like to come to Bali with me? Or whatever it is. So what was the catalyst for you? That kind of like, you know, when the hero is being called into his hero's journey?
Wow, to sum it up in one catalyst, because it did feel like a series of breadcrumbs. It was like, you know, and then more.
Maybe
and more
one that stands out, one that really stands out for you.
I actually remember, this is funny, and it's not like a big thing, but it was definitely something that was a seed that was planted. was actually when I was young. I was about 15 years old. My mother invited me to watch the movie The Secret.
Ooh.
And I do you remember, did you ever watch
Of
that one?
course.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much like spirituality 101, The Secret. And it was a book by Amanda, I can't remember what, Rhonda Bryan or something like that. I can't remember her exact name. Anyway, it was an invitation into the quantum realm, or the
Mm,
quantum physics, that our thoughts are actual vibrations, and as they emanate out of our being, they create a
bam.
energetic imprint that then gets
Yeah.
reflected back to us. And so I kind of went from being like, a certain curriculum in school to being like, you can create your reality. I was like, what? I can create my reality? Are you kidding? And I remember, because I was also like pretty young, and so I was like, wait, so if I want a Range Rover Sport, it was all about like material things at that point. I
Yeah.
can get a Range Rover Sport.
When you're still in the 3D, right? You're like, I can
Yeah,
manifest my car.
yeah, and I was definitely thinking, because that was sort of the programming that I was born into, was that
Hmm.
success is from an external standpoint. You are a successful person if you have a big house. You are a successful person if you have X amount of money in your bank account. And so there was a program in place that was saying that my happiness comes from something outside of myself, which
Mm.
actually, over the years of unlearning, I'm realizing that actually what we're doing here is inner engineering our external reality. So it's
Mm.
finding that place of like highest excitement, passion, joy, peace, and then that is actually reflected. So there's nothing wrong with having a Range Rover Sport. It's beautiful, great, amazing. It's possible to be able to
Give me
navigate.
one of
We're in
those.
these
Yeah.
3D bodies, but if we place our happiness in these
Mm.
external things, this is where we're walking a very rocky path, because those things are always subject to change. And that means that our happiness is always subject to be kind of like the ocean, as opposed to more balanced and consistent, because it's actually
Mm.
formated from within. So I would say that the catalyst definitely was just being a kid, painting my room one day, listening to the book, The Secret, or watching the movie, and being like, and I remember painting my wall, being like, I can
And
have anything
create my
I
own
want.
reality.
Oh, what? So I would say
That's
that, but then
beautiful. Yeah.
there's been so many things. There's been
And it
so
sounds
many
like it was
things.
a seed, right? So it was a seed, maybe an idea. And at the
Mhm.
time, it just started to cook. And then as
Mhm.
time moved and the energies flowed and you traveled and met new people and had new invitations, that that potential, let's say,
Mhm.
started to bloom. And like you
Mhm.
say, it's so much about reality creation. And reality creation, reality, it's like everything in this creation. All right, great. But that can be overwhelming.
Mhm.
And then when we start to anchor that in our lives, so reality through our lives, through your frequency of blue, my frequency of Madiha, anybody watching's frequency of how their life looks like, it starts to look like little pieces, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, my community, my lover, my work, all these pieces start to come together. So what pieces started to show up for you that
Mhm.
felt like the most, that shifted everything for you, maybe from the
Mhm.
sort of relationship you were in to the sort of work you were doing to maybe like how you were dressing just to be more wild and free and creative. What are
Mhm.
some of the pieces that showed
Mhm.
up and started to create your own reality? And it's so interesting because so many people leading the revolution, my husband included, he has over 1 million followers here, well,
Wow.
followers, community. He was an engineer. So
Mhm.
this idea of like engineering and creating and designing, it's so much a part of the spiritual awakening where we are becoming more conscious about the pieces that come. So it's not non-rational, it's not it also makes sense. It also can be pieced together. But it's about
Mhm.
knowing what are those fine pieces that we can
Mhm.
start to look at, starting
Mhm.
with dot dot dot. Tell me, what like how did
Mhm.
it come together for you?
Well, I didn't know that about your husband, and that's phenomenal. I love
Mm.
that. I love that he's made that shift, and is now also inspiring so many others also.
Go,
So
yeah.
I think that it's really important to acknowledge that sometimes we can place an expectation that our breakthroughs, our awakenings, come from these big, huge feats, these big things that must happen for us to then have this awakening. But actually, it's an acknowledgement of the magic, the breakthroughs are found in the mundane, in
Mm.
the smallest moments of like, okay, if I can start actually just choosing the things that the things that expand, that make me feel expansive over the contraction. And let's just do it in the mundane. Okay, beautiful. So what does it look like to start with my bedroom and to cleaning out anything that is not, that feels like old stagnant energy that's not serving. And then all of a sudden now when I wake up in the morning, I feel a little bit more expansion. Okay, now in my morning practice, the first hour, I can either go directly onto my cell phone, or I can actually spend an hour in meditation and journaling and dancing and getting my energy and raising my energy. It's doing things, the small things, over a prolonged period of time that actually create a beautiful, fertile soil for a life that feels like a life of alignment. And so it takes time, and it just takes like presence in the small things, and eventually it trickles from the clothes that you have on your back to every single stitch of where they come from, to supporting small businesses, to having a home that's filled with intricate art that reflects back to you the power of who you are, to the food that you have in the fridge, that it's all living food and it's organic, as opposed to like processed food that's just more from like not recognizing that actually we become the food that we emanate, to the people you follow on social media, and to starting to like literally put a comb through our life, that fine combs and goes, now when I scroll through my Instagram, I'm looking at people that are inspiring, that are creating art and poetry, that are living in their truth, that are actually creating the new narrative from artificial glamour into authentic beauty. And so it's a life by design, by actually acknowledging what is enriching my spirit and what is depleting my spirit, and how can I choose more enrichment by allowing myself to eliminate that depletes my spirit.
Oof. Yeah, big time. And what you said about also just social media and all the inputs we're getting as we start to clear our friends list, our telephone books, the books we have on our shelves, just so that everything around you in your life starts to reflect that high vibration, that aliveness, that happiness, which you realize like success is happiness. Success is nothing else but me feeling so turned on by life and so like, fudge, it's so good to be alive. As Infinite Water.
Exactly.
And really finding that frequency for yourself. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, social media has become almost the new television now. And so instead of turning on the TV, imagine some people may still turn on the TV, but we've got this device in our hand.
It's always there.
It's always open in social media, and we can see what's going on. And if the first 10 people on their Instagram reels or Instagram stories are posting like, I'm getting up, I'm eating clean, I'm dancing, this is a piece of artwork that I created, it goes into the subconscious mind that goes, hey, look what's possible in the human experience, as opposed to feeding a narrative more of separation or division. And so this is the power that we have. We can't control what's happening outside of us. We can respond and control what and how we utilize our attention, because Andre said this to me, which is just so powerful. He said that our attention is our spiritual currency.
Oof, I love that. Yes.
So where are we sending our attention, and what are we putting our attention and intention into over a prolonged period of time?
And we live in such a distracted world. So literally, they're taking that currency by bombarding us with so much stuff that's useless, and it's almost like the chemicals in the food. It destroys your being. So like you said, making that choice to come back to alignment and to the environment and the community, because social media becomes like a family, a community. Like since I've been following you, I've also been following other people. And sometimes by following your page, I see someone else, I'm like, damn, she's inspiring. And so my field of expansion becomes larger through these connections on social media. So to choose wisely. And that brings me to another topic that I really feel inspired, and I feel you're also very inspired by, which is community. Because in a way, social media becomes that. It's a community that inspires, activates, and supports you in your journey. And I remember back last year when you were still at the Mother Tree Law, I was still in this, like, I've always been inspired by community. I've been a part of many traveling, so I've seen the light, the shadow, the whole package. It gets dirty, it gets clean, it gets a bit of everything. And we opened a community space here in Jordan called Utopia. It's been going on. So it's a social experiment, right, with community. I want to ask you about your experience with that, like with the Mother Tree Law, with now living and then in another home. I know all about your life. I'm a freakster stalking you on social media, but a theme that's been coming up is community, and I feel there's something you can share with us about what you've learned about community and what that can add and what that can hold for you throughout the process and the journey.
Beautiful. Well, so yeah, community has been the pillar of my life for the past, I would say, like 7 years or so. Started out with the Venice, the Oasis of Venice, which was a huge community hub here in Venice, and then we moved from there to the Mother Tree and built that from the foundation up. And now there's 11 people living there now that I don't live there anymore, but that's still thriving and going and activated. And then there was another spot called the Jungle Beach House, which was 16 people living under one roof. And then finally, for the first time in quite a long time, I'm now living just with my partner and my dog, who made a slight appearance just a moment ago. And so this is actually my first time in a long time that I'm actually just living in my own space. But I do like community for me is such a huge part of my human experience. And with everything, there's always the beautiful gifts and there's also the deep challenge. And so we get to acknowledge the dark side of the moon as much as we acknowledge the light side of the moon within it. And I would say that the benefits of community is that the inspiration, the family, the dining together, you're an architect and you are a content creator and you are an artist and you are and being exposed to all different, what I like to say, community is like having a diamond, but there's many, many, many different faces to it.
So it's like the complementarity.
Yeah, and you get like the full experience, and then someone's cooking and someone's cleaning the house and things are taken care of, and you move like a shoal of fish. If there's a synergy, you can move like a shoal of fish where everybody's individual, but if you have a project, you're so much more powerful when you have a whole group of people that are on board. And so community for me has been where I have grown the most, because also it can be a challenge while also simultaneously a great gift, is that relationships are our mirrors. And if you live with 10 people,
that's a lot of mirrors.
You can't escape yourself. You're having a bad day. You gotta still see everybody, you know? And it's actually, you keep meeting yourself through the eyes of others. And it's a way to actually go, you know, when I'm alone and I've got something coming up, I don't have to face off with 10 people to face off with it, so I can just brush it away. But if I'm living with 10 people and I'm going through something, we're gonna have a chat about it and we're gonna help that person to move through something. But I tell you, if you live in community and there's a general consensus that we pour into each other, and instead of going in with the mindset of what can I get from this, but go into the mindset of how can I contribute, you'll all live in abundance.
Beautiful. Right? And that's something I always invite people who join Utopia. I'm like, don't come in thinking, what can I take? How can I contribute to this community? And like you said, it's this compressed cooker where everyone comes together and you can't escape and you just have to face everything. And then there's that level of conscious community where you're all at the level of empowerment that everybody knows all about triggers and knows all about shadow and knows all about all these like terminology, and then you start to practice it and to see where your limitations are and where your growth is as well. And also just the stuff, the humanness, the like dirty stuff that comes out where, you know, everybody's limitations, everyone's gifts, it's like full on. And then usually what happens when we go deep into community is then we'll extract ourselves, right, and need our space, because it can also get intense and can also get not overwhelming, but just it gives you a lot to work with. Yeah,
100%.
And when we go in at first, we might be idealists, you know, it's like we've been alone for so long, we just want to be in conscious community. And then you learn it has all the parts, and also finding yourself requires taking the space to do you and live with your lover. And here in the Middle East, that's not really an option, you know, that's not really available to people. Even for me, I couldn't go live with anybody, not even my best friend, until I got married. And I'm a pretty liberated, and like I went to grad school, lived alone, but once you come back here, there's so much structure and limitation on how you can live in your individuality. And so for a lot of people, that community is their family, and there's so much cooking that they don't want to face, and yet they're in that pressure cooker. So that's definitely something to consider for anyone watching from the Arab world, that where we are is also to think about how that applies to where we are. Like maybe for you, community is just going and joining the community. Maybe for you, community is having a more conscious presence with your friends, being more present with what shows up. And maybe eventually that will mean living in community at Mother Tree or Utopia or wherever. Blue, another thing that really inspires me about you and your lifestyle is the creativity. And I really have this strong belief that in life there has to be such a balance between learning, which we all love, right? We're lifelong learners. If you're a teacher, you're a learner. If you're a spiritual person on this journey, you're a learner. We're always reading and learning. But then there has to be this balance between what we learn and absorb and kind of like feed from in order to grow, and also what we're contributing, what we're creating, whether it's art or initiations or communities. And part of what I really love, I feel you're always in this constant process of creation, whether it's the outfit you're wearing or the haircut or the tattoo or the art. You're an artist, and the artwork with the lion. Oh my God, that's so incredible. It's so blue, by the way. Frequency, what I feel. And I want to ask you about that. Like, how does one balance learning and just being so passionate about taking the right high vibe things in, and then making it a point to be creative, to show up for contribution and not just taking everything in?
Well, that's a beautiful question. You're coming out with some really lovely corker of a question, Tim, Mama. So with the creativity, I mean, I just naturally am a very creative individual. In my gene keys, which is a whole other topic, I'm the number one gene key, which is essentially the most creative gene key of all of them. And so this is just something that does run through me strongly in my genetics, and also because of my hearing, and that's a whole other topic, but I'm 70% deaf in both my ears, and so my communication is usually through energy, and realizing that actually if the universe only speaks energy, then our very present moment is our vibrational contribution to the collective. And a lot of the programs that we are conditioned with is to be goal orientated, not process orientated. And this is actually bypassing our vibratory state to get to some sort of future destination to eventually then be fulfilled. But realizing actually for me, a lot of my fulfillment comes from being in that timeless state of creating something, of a watercolor, or writing a poem, or writing a song, or painting a painting, or using my clothes as an artistic expression. Now, from that perspective, it's more process orientated than goal orientated. And now it starts to feel really like fun just for the moment of it, which actually is the contribution to the collective, because then the universe can only bring you back more of what it is you're emitting. And so it for me, it's art and creativity and music, but for someone else it might be cooking a delicious meal from scratch, or it might be dancing in your living room to start your day. And it's really going, okay, how much of my day can I contribute to being in the feel-good feeling, which is going to bring more of that into my experience. And so for me, I love creating containers and doing a podcast, and I love the business side of things too. And it really helps me to sustain my life, while simultaneously I put a huge emphasis on creation just for the joy of it, to keep my vibration high, so that I don't get caught in the rat race of doing mentality. And I've completely forgot how to be a human being. Like actually just be a human being. And so we all have that side of us that when we were, if you've forgotten what that is, just remember what you were doing when you were 7 years old as a kid. Like, were you creating? Were you doing pottery? Were you making music out of the pots and pans in the kitchen? Like, what is that thing that creates that timelessness space? And how can I devote a part of my day? Because I looked at my how much my usage on my phone the other day. It was like I used my phone for 5 hours the other day. Like, I was like, imagine if I allocated 5 hours of my day to be learning how to play the guitar. Where would I be in a month from now? So again, it's the spiritual currency of my attention, and realizing that actually I would like to become spiritually rich by utilizing my attention to the things that enrich my soul for the moment and the joy of doing it, not necessarily for some sort of outlet goal in the long term. So there's always a balance with that. It's balancing, holding the vision for the long term, what I want to create, what do I want to move into, while simultaneously utilizing some of the time I spent scrolling to actually learning a song on the guitar and enriching my spirit from that perspective.
I love that. And it really shifted something within me too, because I feel it's like I have to make it a point to create, because I love creating, but then I'm almost in that doing mode when I'm creating. Like I have to paint today, I have to draw, I have to write that book. Versus when you bring it back to the being, just because creating is almost your nature, it's your joy. It's just like something so juicy starts to happen in your frequency when you're creating. It becomes actually an easy thing. Just do what feels good, whether it's the meal or the art, and that kind of like gives our being permission. Just go do it. Or just go be it. Don't even go do it. Go be it. Go be the creativity. And I feel in the Middle East, that's really being called, because everything is so regimented. And I don't want to generalize because, you know, of course, there's a bit of everything. You go to a place like Dahab in Egypt and Sinai, and it's creative and it's spiritual and all this stuff. But then you go to a lot of places where culturally, there is this almost ban on creativity. You have to do things the way it's been done for all the generations before. So when you just start to be outside the box, you don't have to do, you don't have to go beyond just, I keep saying doing, but I mean being what feels so real for you in that moment. And I saw when you're moving your tattoos, would you be open to tell me about one or two, just how your body became a canvas? And that's one of the ways of individuating, right? Of being you, of being blue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of energy around this tattoo for sure. I don't know if you've heard on the podcast my journey with it. And this is my first ever tattoo, and it definitely created a huge rift in my family life. As this tattoo actually, I haven't spoken to my parents for about a year and a half since I got the tattoo. Because that was one of their big rules, big no-nos, and I did it anyway.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely along this path. I think that it also comes with its own hazards in the sense that there's going to be other people's, maybe specifically family, cultural, of how we were raised, certain preconceived notions of what is acceptable within our religions, and so it's a very, like, it takes a lot of courage to walk on this path of like full radical expression, when there are perceptions from outside of us of how we're supposed to be. And so this was a huge, for me, getting this tattoo was like a declaration of a reclamation of my own body. And this is my body and I choose what I do with it. And as long as it's actually not harming anyone else, then this is my truth. And so this tattoo for me was ultimately energetically all about the journey of unconditional love for myself and for others. And then there's many deep meanings that are embedded into this tattoo. But ultimately, really what the tattoo is a reminder of is that there is the realm of infinite possibilities which we get dropped into. And it's like, you can be all of these different things that you want to be. You can be an artist, a mother, a student, a teacher, a lover. You can be an engineer. You can be a this, you can be a that. There's so many different choices. And then also the same thing within every single moment. There's infinite choices. After this call, do I go up and I get a breakfast? Do I go out for a walk? Do I do this? I can choose, there's infinite possibilities. Now, the training for me with what this tattoo reminds me of is the training of single point focus in every given moment. That the actual truth of it is that the only moment I have for the rest of my life is this one right now. And from that place, realizing that if all my attention and intention goes to whatever is right in front of me, then it's being poured in with my presence, then it turns to gold. And so the training of the mind is that, can I train myself to be 100% present with whatever is in front of me?
Arrived. Do you want to come and say hi?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hi.
It's like a Madiha.
And you get calling me.
Okay, enjoy, guys. I forgot that you have an interview. Enjoy.
Beauty.
I love it. When he popped in, Lily popped her head up and she's like, someone's here.
She's like that. And he keeps calling, and I was like, I hope everything is okay, because it was like, when someone calls and you reject, and then they call again and you reject, and you're like, oh gosh, I hope everything is okay.
Well, you handled that very well. I had no idea that you were getting calls and rejecting them. So anyway, yeah, the tattoo is an expression of life is art, and it's merging the journey of the art and life are two separate things, and allowing my life to become an expression of art, allowing my home, my clothes, my whatever it is to be an expression of art as an artist, and I believe we're all artists of our own right, maybe different canvases, but we all have an inner expressive creative experience that wants to be expressed. And I believe that, and Brianna, one of my greatest teachers, has shared this with me, that anxiety is unexpressed creative potential.
Like it wants to come out.
Needs to go somewhere. It needs to go somewhere. It needs an outlet.
Yeah, I feel that, and it's almost like there's so much. It needs to come out. It's like giving birth, and it's your being that just wants to be born. And I love what you said about living artfully. That resonates with me on so many levels. From what to make for breakfast and to add that pomegranate so that it looks as yummy as it tastes, to just allowing beauty to be a part. And I feel that's what it returns to. The priestess that's like adding beauty to her life, and living in alignment with your truth has that frequency of beauty, that self-love, that returning to blue. And I really celebrate you, sister, for going on that journey and going full in. Like so many of us and so many people, they can put a leg in and then they'll put it, but you just like, it's so obvious. You just went like, bam, I'm in for this, whatever it means. And as you mentioned, your parents, part of what it means, it's sacrifices. And Ihab, my lover husband, we got married this year, Corona married. It's really cool. But he defined sacrifice once as sacrificing something of a lower frequency for the sake of something of a higher frequency. So most people, they think sacrifice is just a bad thing. But actually what I'm doing is almost an exchange. I'm letting go of that old thing that doesn't suit where I am to reach a level of frequency and vibration that's more where I am today, that's higher. So sacrificing something along the way, it's a part of it. And it's a test to see, what are you willing to let go of that is this uncomfortable and challenging and painful, maybe even, in order to really live your truth. And like you said, that takes so much courage. So I just want to take a moment to celebrate your courage, Blue, for you and all the people you're inspiring, because one woman stepping into her truth has allowed so many thousands, right? Has given permission to so many thousands to lead a revolution, because by leading your revolution, you're inviting them to lead theirs. So tell me more about
that's the very piece. It's like, I mean, ultimately, the very first revolution that ever happens is loving ourselves. In a world that we're conditioned and trained to believe that our happiness comes from outside of ourselves, the first ever revolution is to go, you know what? No.
Yeah.
I love myself enough to pour into my own cup and let that overflow into the people around me. And I love what you said about one person that steps into their truth can move mountains and then impact and inspire so many other people. And ultimately, that's really what this journey is all about. Why I'm even showing up here today, why you're showing up here today, why I've created the podcast, why I'm so active on social media is more so from the intention of saying, if I can create and paint and do these things and learn how to connect and learn how to love myself, even with my greatest challenge being 70% deaf, and find the superpower on it on the other side too, so can you. And this is the revolution, is that we as individuals step into our truth and into our power, and together we go, you know what, I'm not going to hate you anymore. I'm not going to dislike you for the color of your skin. I'm not going to ostracize you because you're a different class than I am. I'm actually going to recognize that how I treat you is how I get treated in return. And I'm actually going to, through the revolution of me being able to love myself, I can only love you at the capacity I love myself. So if I start loving myself, that is the revolution, because now as a default, I'm going to start loving you. I'm going to start accepting you for your challenges. I'm going to start seeing the potential in why that challenge is being presented to you. And as an individual, I'm going to be the one that's going to create a revolution in my immediate circle, because it starts, and the Dalai Lama spoke about this, if we want to see a revolution on the planet, We have to love ourselves. We have to heal ourselves. Then it trickles into our blood family, because they're the people that we have not got a choice, but we have been given them to learn a deep level of unconditional love. If we can learn to accept them just the way that they are, then when we have community, it's easy to love and accept people the way that we choose to be around these people. We pick them, and then we pour our love into them. All of a sudden now we've gone self, family, community, then what's next? The world. That's the revolution on a vibratory state. So if I go out into the world, go, I need to serve everybody else, but I'm miserable and I don't have a sense of peace. This is the archetype of the wounded healer. I'm going to try and fill everyone else's cup up, but my own. What will this lead to? Burnout and exhaustion, because it's not a sustainable model. We need to learn to accept all sides of ourselves, our rage, our anger, our jealousy, our uncertainty, our sadness, as much as we accept our creativity, our joy, our celebration, our play, and all of the light side of the moon. Because to be honest, for me personally, and Brianna also said this, which I just really resonate with, I'm not here to be a Zen Buddhist monk. This is just not for me in this lifetime. I'm here to be an embodied
Maybe we've done
woman.
that in past lifetimes.
I'm here to be an
to gain all
embodied
this
woman.
you must have spent some hours on the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Bullshit, man.
But
I'm
not
here
this
to feel it all. I'm here to feel it all and love all of it. That little girl inside of me that comes up that is jealous and is sad and feels separation. You know what? Here's my curriculum to even expand more of my love. Can I love her too? Can I love that part of me that feels like I'm unworthy, or feels that I haven't got my thing, or feels like I'm comparing myself with someone? Can I love that too? Because I'm not trying to create some sort of like fairy tale reality that does not accept the shadow part of myself. I'm not here to spiritually bypass. I'm here to feel that fucking rage and channel it into something beautiful.
You speak it, sister, and it's done. And I feel there's two parts to what you're saying that's so juicy, as someone said. Number one, it's that expansion of self-love, of really taking it all in, that the revolution starts with you. Revolutionarily accepting all of you, the parts that you've disowned, the parts that you've said, you know, they're not good enough, the parts that you've said, those parts I'll leave aside. The revolution starts with you saying all of you back in. Because when you take all of that back in, you take all of life back in. And I'm sure you've seen that image of the person going like, who wants to change the world? And everyone puts their hand up. And then he goes, who wants to change the world by starting with yourself? And then nobody puts their hand up, or like one guy in the crowd. And this is how so many of us started with on life, right? We were successful, we were changing the world, we were out there. But then when we started to return back inwards, when you started to really reflect on these energy dynamics in your life, and that leads to what you were expressing, or what it sounded to me like you were expressing, which is oneness. I'm no longer treating that thing that's happening, whether it's poverty or whatever is unacceptable in the outside world, as something existing outside of me, but as an aspect of my consciousness that I need to seriously embrace and understand and reflect on and love. And once that wholeness, that process, that completion starts to integrate in me, in you, in all the women in our communities, and all the men in our communities, and all the leaders in our communities, that's when the global awakening, which is, right, it's going to the next level, because we are recognizing, we are seeing beyond seeing it with the eyes and the brain and the mind. We are feeling the truth of this thing that you're saying, which is, it's all just a mirror. The revolution, you are me, Blue, and I am you, and that is the revolution. You might be in LA and I might be in Amman, Jordan, but we're all these cells on this planet, and we're doing
you win. When you win, I win.
You win.
Because we're all sharing the one home that we have two homes. First home is our body. The second home is this planet. We share this home, and we are here to remember the interconnectedness of nature. So if you have a podcast that blows up and it's all about speaking from your heart-centered truth,
I'm like, go Blue, that podcast is fucking amazing. I'm so glad it exists.
I'm winning. Yeah. I'm winning if you do, because it means that truth is getting out there of empowerment for the people, for us as individuals, and recognizing our uniqueness is our power, which comes back to our original point.
You know, I had a really funny phase in my life after having a plant ceremony. And it was this realization that everyone is me. And so whatever would happen, I just have this inner dialogue going, I know this is me. I know you're another. Where I used to resist people like my dad, or, like people who are super conservative, or, all these things that trigger me in my reality. I'm like, okay, now you get to breathe into them. Now you get to see how he is an aspect of your consciousness that you are resonating with. And that's why you were, engaging on that level. And suddenly it becomes almost scary that everything becomes an echo for your own inner revolution, the involution. And I love that word, right? Involution. It takes it all back in, and then recycles out, and then back in. I want to see if there's any questions from people watching. If you have any questions for Blue that you'd like to know from her life, her lifestyle, her mind, her heart, anything you feel curious about. And I feel curiosity is really one of those, if you don't know what to do, just follow your curiosity. It will lead you somewhere gold. Inviting questions. And if not, I got my own.
Yeah, perfect. There might be a slight little lag of the, how do you start loving yourself?
How do you start loving yourself?
That's a beautiful question. So first, I think acknowledging where we don't love ourselves and getting really clear on that. And where do I not accept myself? Where do I reject myself? And ultimately, the way to self-awareness, the way to understanding our truth, the way to understanding the way that we are, is actually the journey is down, in, and then up. And so it's about feeling all parts of ourselves that were trapped when I was 6 years old. I remember singing in a school play and not hitting the right note and all of the kids laughing at me. And then all of a sudden I stopped loving that part of myself. And now as an adult, the singing and being expressed shuts me down, and then I think there's something wrong with me. Well, it's not just about being like, oh, well, just love it. It's like putting a band-aid on it. It's actually about going down into that. When was that first time that I stopped loving and accepting that part of myself? And how can I actually go back to that inner child and start to actually face up with it? And there's many tools of doing this. There's breath work, there's plant ceremony, there's movement and somatic levels, and there's like touch, sound, moving it through. There's containers that are set up to support us to actually go, you know what, for 20 years of my life I have not accepted this part of myself. I'm willing to acknowledge and diagnose where it came from, go into it actively and rewrite that narrative. So now as a 30-year-old woman, I can start to actually show up more in wholeness because I've integrated that part of myself that's just actually needing my love. And so it's a willingness to actually be in the self-inquiry about who am I, why do I believe the certain ways that I think and believe, and am I willing to actually go into those parts of my life and to start rewriting the story? Because we are not only the main role, we're not only the narrator, but with the main role, we're the narrator and we're the director of this movie of life, and we get to choose of how we're going to start to show up based on our willingness to actually face up with the parts of ourselves that are not still in love.
Juicy. Blue, I have a question from Light Codes. She's asking, Blue, do you see yourself creating an album with conscious music and vocal tone soundscapes? I heard your video this week, the one with Blessed We Are. Blessed we are to walk on this That's a beautiful song. I love it as well. And that's a really good question. I'd love to hear. What's your sound journey? What's happening there? Do you feel you want to create more and share more and maybe create an album? Or where do you feel that's moving towards?
Daniela Sage, I love her. That's Light Codes, and so happy that you're here, Mama. So yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. Right now I have stopped actually taking on one-on-one clients because it's become so busy with just doing Gene Key readings that I've actually not really had a whole lot of time to be able to focus on my art or my creations. And so I've closed my books for the intention to actually start focusing more on the creation side of things. So I think actually music is one of the, if not the most powerful frequencies because of healing, because it can actually change physical matter. The music can permeate the being and change our vibratory state. And so to sing from a place of intention and to sing from a place of heart, how that can actually shift someone's internal state is so powerful. And so I think that this will definitely be something that's on the horizon. The singing bowl, the voice activation, the handpan, the harp, and having an album that is literally all of it would be such a dream come true. So I'm calling in the right producers and people to work with sound, but definitely
Calling in the right producers. If you're here, show yourself.
Yeah. If the real Slim Shady, please stand up.
Will show up, definitely. And I feel part of the sound thing. I was reading about like how ancient societies, they really understood the technology of sound. They were even maybe lifting rocks. Like the technology of sound was maximized to such a capacity that it was fueling entire communities and societies. And we're just tapping into that science and art of sound and healing. So the more we're able to go into that, and the more people like you, Blue, start to bring that out more into the world. And your voice has a beautiful energy and vibration that brings back to that signature print, right? Your signature vibration. It definitely comes through your voice, I feel, or at least this is what I sense when I listen. And really curious to see where that goes.
Thank you. I believe that the voice is a vibration of the soul. And when we share our voice, we allow our soul to be out into the world.
Beautiful. Even just speaking, right? To hear your voice, that you hear my voice, there is also energy that is shared beyond the words, you know, the words beyond the words. And when we tune into that frequency, that subtleness, something magic can start to also happen without us knowing sometimes. So Blue, I'd like to ask you, just because this is kind of like also an intercultural thing, you know, like speaking to an audience in the Arab world, also with your audience back there. So we're fusing, you know, globally, culturally, religiously, whatever is happening in the audience and between me and you. And I'd love to hear what message you would like to share with women in the Arab world, women who are, you know, just coming into their awakening, into their bodies, into their power, into their involution. What do you feel is a message you would like to share with them that will serve them in this moment in time, in context, in history of what's happening in the world? And actually, I want to invite you, Boo, if you don't mind, to really close your eyes and breathe in and receive that message that I'm inviting you to share, so that we don't rush it, but something that really comes from the truest place inside you. What is the message that every woman here today, or every woman who will watch the recording of this live interview, needs to hear?
Every single person on this planet has a superpower. Every single woman in the Middle East has a superpower and a uniqueness that nobody else can replace. And the more we even just allow that to be a thought, we start to call in the breadcrumbs that allow that to come out into the world. So to shift any internal narrative that says I'm unworthy, I'm not enough, what is different about me, into the narrative that there is something unique about me. I have a superpower. My responsibility in this life is to find what that is and to share it with others. And so I do not come from the Middle East, and I understand. I have friends that from the Middle East that I understand that the suppression that can happen there, specifically with the female voice. And ultimately, I believe this is the generation where we are going to be giving each other permission slip to find our voice again and to share it. So even if it just starts with us singing in the shower and finding our pulse and our beat and our hum, that is a revolution. And from that, let the universe keep responding to your own unique pulse and watch magic happen. But when women in the Middle East find their voice fully, truly in their own unique way, I believe that the planet will restore its balance from the feminine and the masculine on this planet. So I love you, my sisters. I give you all of my support, and I cannot wait to witness you like fully shine, fully find that power and that magic and that superpower within, because it would be an absolute honor to witness that the magic pour out of this ancestrally deep wise place that is held in the bloodline of the women in the Middle East. Powerful women.
Oh, someone was saying she's eating your words up. That was such a beautiful message, Boo. I felt it in all my cells, and I feel just that thing about expression and voice and every woman finding her superpower. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful invitation. What a beautiful way to end this deep and just organic. And I really enjoyed this talk on a level that I've wanted to talk to you for a while. So I'm really glad we found this opportunity to connect. And I just want to say, if you ever come to Jordan, you have a house to crash. If anyone from your community would like to meet, if they come to Jordan, they have a house to crash. I would love to connect on this level of conscious communities and conscious creators and conscious sisterhood, and just really make bridges between our worlds. And I'm really, really grateful to you, Blue, for what you're sharing and the revolution you're leading and everything you shared today, and your time and being able to reorganize with our timing. And just feeling so much gratitude and joy and just the feeling of bliss in my being right now.
Well, thank you. Such an honor to be here, to be introduced to your audience. And also, I just want to acknowledge you for the way that you're stepping in, for the way that you are finding your voice and activating it, and for the people that you are impacting and inspiring, the way that you are just consistently showing up. There is a fire and a passion and a drive in you that is the revolution in human form. And so I'm just so grateful, sister, for the work that you're doing in the world and the way that you're using your platform to illuminate and inspire and empower so many others. You are a gift to us all. Blessing.
Thank you, Beauty. Thank you so much. I really drink that in, and it means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. And then if anybody wants to tune in to more conversations around this stuff, ranging the whole range from plant medicines to finding my voice to tattoos to jealousy to breath work and all of that sort of stuff, then
listen to Blue's podcast. It is amazing. I can binge on it, and you feel the vibe, and you bring amazing guests. And please, everybody here and everybody who watches, go listen to Blue's podcast. It's Deja Blue on Spotify, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and SoundCloud, on iTunes and all different platforms. But you can find it in the link in my bio on Instagram.
Beautiful. Please go watch it, guys, girls, all the people in the house, all the souls in the house. It's a really nice thing to binge on and enjoy and learn from and evolve with. And thank you for creating it. Thank you for creating today and every day, for continuing to create. And hopefully we'll reconnect sometime, Blue. Have a beautiful evening. Well, morning for you, evening for us.
Yeah.
We're on lockdown. The alarm just went on and they're like, woo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then you have to stay inside when the alarm goes off?
Good times. Good times. Good times.
No idea.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so beautiful. This conversation is such an amazing bridge, because you know, like we don't really fully, unless we're looking at the news, which also can be slightly distorted, it's through these lives and knowing that you're there right in the middle of the Middle East, and me from LA, and being able to have these conversations what's your life like out there, how's it going, and allowing whoever's tuning in from my audience to really get a deeper understanding, and vice versa, and being able to feel each other. So I'm down for this again if you ever want to do it again, and we can definitely chat
I'd love to. Let's make it happen.
Perfect.
And anybody, if you have any questions also for Blue, go to her channel, go to her podcast. She has a lot to offer, and it's just really fun to follow her as well. So really grateful for this intercultural, interdimensional bridge going on. And have a beautiful wild life until I see you next on the time. And everybody here, I send you love, blessings, glory. Find your voice, find your superpower like Blue invited us all to do. And let's end on that superpower note. Thank you, sisters. Mwah. Have a beautiful one. I don't know how to close this because I've never done this before. What do I press?
I think it's just the X in the corner.
All right.
Yeah.
Over and out.